There is a particular kind of transformation that happens without anyone noticing. No announcement, no dramatic goodbye, no public declaration that everything is about to change. A person simply becomes quieter. They stop explaining themselves. They stop showing every struggle. They stop asking everyone to understand what they are going through. And slowly, something begins to change. Their habits change. Their thinking changes. Their standards change. Their identity changes. This process can be called silent rebuilding. It happens when someone decides to improve, recover, restart, or completely transform their life without constantly seeking recognition from other people. But why does rebuilding in silence often make a person mentally stronger? The answer is not simply that silence is powerful. The real answer is connected to psychology. It involves independence, emotional regulation, identity, motivation, resilience, and the way the human brain responds to struggle. Because when nobody is watching, one important thing changes. You are forced to rely on yourself. And that can fundamentally change who you become. Modern life makes transformation highly visible. People announce new goals. They post their progress. They share every achievement. They tell others about the person they want to become before they have actually become that person. There is nothing inherently wrong with sharing progress. Social support can be helpful, but there is an important psychological difference between talking about change and doing the difficult work of change. When you constantly receive attention for your intentions, your brain may receive some of the emotional reward before the work is complete. You say that you are going to change. People encourage you. They praise your decision. For a moment, you already feel like a different person. But real transformation requires repetition. It requires uncomfortable decisions when nobody is encouraging you. Silent rebuilding removes much of the external reward. There may be no applause, no recognition, no immediate validation. So the motivation must become more internal. You continue because the change matters to you, not because someone else is watching. And over time, this can create a stronger form of motivation. Psychologists often distinguish between external motivation and internal motivation. External motivation comes from rewards, approval, recognition, or pressure from other people. Internal motivation comes from personal values, meaning, curiosity, and the satisfaction of becoming better. Silent rebuilding gradually pushes you toward the second type. You begin asking a different question, not, will people notice how much I have changed? But, am I becoming the person I want to be? That shift can be psychologically powerful, because external attention can disappear at any moment. Internal commitment can remain. There is another reason rebuilding privately can make you stronger. When other people know about your transformation, they may also develop expectations. They start watching. They ask questions. They want updates. They may judge your progress. And sometimes, this creates pressure. You are no longer only trying to improve. You may also feel that you need to perform improvement. Silent rebuilding removes much of that pressure. You can fail without explaining it. You can change your strategy without defending it. You can take longer than expected. You can make mistakes without feeling that everyone is observing them. This creates psychological space. And psychological space is important. Real change is rarely perfectly organized. People relapse into old habits. They lose motivation. They make poor decisions. They question themselves. They start again. When transformation is private, failure does not automatically become a public identity. You do not have to protect an image of yourself. You can simply return to the work. This allows a person to develop something extremely valuable. Psychological flexibility. Psychological flexibility is the ability to adapt when life does not go according to plan. Instead of thinking, I failed, so everything is over, you learn to think, this approach failed. I can adjust. That distinction changes everything. A silent rebuilder becomes less attached to looking successful. They become more focused on actually becoming stronger. And over time, that mindset can create resilience. Starting over can be uncomfortable because it removes familiar structures. The old routine may disappear. Old relationships may change. Old goals may no longer make sense. Sometimes, even your previous identity begins to feel unfamiliar. And when that happens, you are left with something difficult. Yourself. There are fewer distractions. Fewer people telling you who you are. Fewer familiar environments reinforcing your old identity. This can create an uncomfortable psychological experience, but it can also create an opportunity. You begin examining your own patterns. Why did certain things keep repeating? Why did you tolerate certain situations? Why did you react in the same way? Why did you depend so heavily on other people's approval? Silent rebuilding creates time for self-observation. And self-observation is one of the foundations of psychological growth. You start noticing your automatic reactions. You recognize emotional patterns. You become more aware of your strengths and weaknesses. At first, this can feel uncomfortable, because self-awareness is not always pleasant. You may discover that some of your problems cannot be blamed entirely on other people. Some patterns are internal. Some habits are repeated by choice. Some fears have been controlling your decisions for years. But awareness creates options. Once you can see a pattern, you can begin changing it. And that is where rebuilding truly begins. One of the strongest psychological effects of rebuilding in silence is the gradual reduction of approval dependence. Human beings naturally care about what other people think. Social acceptance has always mattered. Being accepted by a group once had major consequences for survival. That is one reason rejection and criticism can feel so emotionally powerful. But when your entire sense of worth depends on other people's reactions, you become psychologically fragile. Praise makes you feel valuable. Criticism makes you question yourself. Attention makes you confident. Silence makes you anxious. Silent rebuilding challenges this pattern. Because during the rebuilding process, other people may not notice your effort. They may not understand your decisions. They may even underestimate you. And you still have to continue. You still have to wake up. You still have to work. You still have to make better decisions. Eventually, something important happens. You realize that progress does not require an audience. Your effort is still real even if nobody sees it. Your discipline still matters even if nobody praises it. Your improvement still counts even if nobody recognizes it yet. This creates a more stable sense of self. You begin relying less on constant external confirmation and more on your own evidence. You know what you have survived. You know what you have learned. You know how much effort you have invested. That knowledge does not disappear simply because nobody applauds. Silent rebuilding often requires emotional control. Not because silent people never feel anything, but because they learn that every emotion does not require an immediate reaction. You may feel angry. You may feel rejected. You may feel disappointed. You may want to explain yourself. You may want people to understand what happened. But rebuilding requires energy, and emotional reactions can consume enormous amounts of it. Constantly defending yourself takes energy. Constantly proving yourself takes energy. Constantly explaining your decisions takes energy. Silent rebuilding teaches a different approach. Instead of reacting to everything, you become more selective. You begin asking, does this situation actually deserve my attention? Will responding improve anything? Am I reacting emotionally or acting intentionally? This is a form of emotional regulation. Emotional regulation does not mean suppressing every feeling. It means creating a space between feeling something and acting on it. That space gives you control. Without it, emotions can control your decisions. With it, you can experience anger without becoming destructive. You can experience fear without immediately giving up. You can experience rejection without completely losing your identity. The more often you practice this, the stronger the skill becomes. And eventually, people may describe you as calm. But the calmness may not come from having an easy life. It may come from learning that not every emotion deserves control over your behavior. When you are surrounded by expectations, it becomes easy to confuse other people's goals with your own. You choose a career because it sounds impressive. You pursue a lifestyle because other people approve of it. You stay in situations because leaving would disappoint someone. You build an identity based on what is expected from you. Then one day, you begin again. And suddenly, there is a question you may not have asked before. What do you actually want? Silent rebuilding creates distance from external noise. And distance can create clarity. Without constant opinions, comparisons, and expectations, you begin examining your own values. What kind of life feels meaningful? What kind of people do you want around you? What habits make you feel stronger? What environments make you worse? What are you no longer willing to tolerate? These questions are important because long-term change is easier when it is connected to personal values. Discipline becomes more sustainable when it is not only about achieving an image. You are no longer rebuilding your life to impress everyone. You are rebuilding it to create something that actually fits you. And when your actions become connected to your values, motivation becomes more stable. Perhaps the most important change happens quietly. You begin trusting yourself. Self-trust is built through evidence, not through positive quotes, not through pretending to be confident. Evidence. You tell yourself that you will wake up earlier. Then you do it. You promise yourself that you will stop returning to a destructive habit. Then you resist it. You decide to learn something difficult. Then you continue even when progress is slow. Every small action sends a message to your brain. I can rely on myself. This is how confidence actually develops. Confidence is often misunderstood as a feeling. But deep confidence is usually built through repeated experiences. You face difficulty. You survive it. You face uncertainty. You adapt. You make mistakes. You recover. Eventually, your brain begins developing a different expectation about the future. You may not know exactly what will happen, but you know that you can respond. That is self-trust, and silent rebuilding can strengthen it because you become responsible for your own progress. Nobody can do the difficult work for you. Someone can support you. Someone can encourage you. But eventually, you are the person who has to make the decision. You are the person who has to continue when motivation disappears. And every time you do, your relationship with yourself becomes stronger. Psychological strength is often connected to identity. At the beginning of a difficult period, you may think, I am someone who cannot handle this. But then time passes. You continue. And eventually, you have evidence that the belief was incomplete. You handled it. Maybe not perfectly. Maybe not gracefully. But you handled it. This can change the way you see yourself. Instead of identifying as someone who avoids discomfort, you begin seeing yourself as someone who can endure it. Instead of believing that failure destroys you, you begin understanding that failure can be survived. Instead of thinking that you need constant support to continue, you discover that you are capable of taking the next step alone. This is why starting over can feel psychologically transformative. It forces an identity update. Your previous identity may have been based on your environment, your job, your relationship, your social group, your reputation. But when those things change, you discover which parts of your identity are truly yours, and which parts were only borrowed from your surroundings. The rebuilding process allows you to construct a more intentional identity, not based entirely on what happened to you, but based on how you respond to what happened. One of the most misunderstood things about transformation is that people usually notice the result before they notice the process. They see the confidence. They do not see the months of uncertainty. They see the discipline. They do not see the days when motivation disappeared. They see the success. They do not see the repeated failures that came before it. This is why silent rebuilding can appear sudden from the outside. But psychologically, it is usually a long process. Change happens through repetition. A new decision, then another. A better habit, then another. A boundary, a difficult conversation, a period of solitude, a refusal to return to an old pattern. Individually, these changes may seem small, but over time, they accumulate. And eventually, the person is different, not because of one dramatic moment, but because of hundreds of quiet decisions. That is the real power of rebuilding in silence. It allows transformation to develop below the surface. Like strength training, the results are not always visible immediately, but the repeated effort is changing the structure underneath. Here's the strange part. Starting over often feels like losing progress. You may feel as if everything you built has disappeared. You may feel behind. You may feel embarrassed. You may feel like everyone else is moving forward while you are beginning again. But starting over is not always returning to zero. You do not lose everything. You carry knowledge. You carry experience. You carry lessons. You carry mistakes that you are less likely to repeat. You carry a deeper understanding of what does not work. So even when your external life appears to have restarted, your internal experience has not disappeared. You are beginning from a different psychological position. You are beginning with more information. And sometimes, that makes the second attempt stronger than the first. The first version of you may have been inexperienced. The rebuilt version understands consequences. The first version may have depended heavily on approval. The rebuilt version understands the value of independence. The first version may have feared failure. The rebuilt version has already experienced it and survived. That changes the meaning of fear. There is an important warning here. Silent rebuilding does not mean isolating yourself from everyone. It does not mean refusing help. It does not mean suppressing emotions until they become invisible. And it does not mean believing that you must handle every problem alone. Real strength includes knowing when support is necessary. There is a difference between rebuilding privately and suffering unnecessarily. The goal is not to become emotionally unreachable. The goal is to become internally stable. You can accept support without becoming dependent on constant approval. You can care about other people's opinions without allowing them to control your identity. You can be vulnerable without losing your strength. Psychological strength is not the absence of emotion. It is the ability to experience emotion without being completely controlled by it. And that is what silent rebuilding can teach. Today, almost everything encourages visibility. Your opinions can be shared instantly. Your progress can be documented daily. Your identity can become something you constantly present to other people. But not every transformation needs an audience. Some goals become stronger when they are protected from unnecessary attention. Some ideas need time before they are exposed to criticism. Some habits need repetition before they become part of your identity. And some periods of life are meant to be quiet, not because you are hiding, but because you are building. There is a difference. Hiding is driven by fear. Rebuilding is driven by intention. One avoids life. The other prepares for it. From the outside, both may look silent. But psychologically, they are completely different. The strongest change may not be visible at all. It may be the moment when you no longer need everyone to understand your decisions. The moment when you stop needing constant reassurance. The moment when you realize that progress can happen quietly. The moment when you learn to sit with uncertainty without immediately escaping it. The moment when you begin trusting your own ability to recover. That is what silent rebuilding can create. Not a person who never struggles. Not a person who never feels fear. Not a person who never needs help. But a person who has developed something more reliable. An internal foundation. Because eventually, life may force you to start again. A plan may fail. A relationship may end. An identity may collapse. A direction you trusted may suddenly disappear. And when that happens, the question is not whether you can avoid starting over. Sometimes you cannot. The real question is what starting over will teach you. Will you need everyone to watch your transformation? Will you wait for approval before changing? Will you allow embarrassment to stop you? Or will you quietly begin again? One decision, then another, and another. Because the person you are becoming is often built long before anyone else notices. The world may only see the comeback, but you will remember the rebuilding. And perhaps that is where the real strength was created. Not in the moment people finally noticed you, but in all the quiet moments when nobody did. Because sometimes the strongest version of you is built in complete silence. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe for more psychology and human behavior.